What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Early Wedge. My name is Nejad, and this morning I am joined by the one and only Jason Sobel. We've already got people in the chat, Jason, talking about stuff I'm not aware of. Zach Kasenki says, Jason Sobel, see you at the Discover Cup in South Carolina. Please bring Sia Nejad for the horse race. I don't know what that is.
Oh, okay. So two things here. Discover Cup. We did this last year for all of our SiriusXM PGA Tour radio friends. We brought the whole crew, our whole channel. We had about 100 listeners come out. We went to Harbortown this past year and on Hilton Head had a great time. We're doing, I believe, Charleston this year. I don't know if I'm breaking some news there that I'm not supposed to, but we're going to Charleston this year in South Carolina. Going to be another great time. And the horse race. Have you never played the horse race board game, Sia?
I have never heard of the horse race board game.
Okay. So do you like to gamble?
I mean, we're doing the Early Wedge.
Okay. I had a feeling. That was a loaded question there. All right. The horse race board game involves horses, dice, cards, and absolutely dumb luck and no skill or knowledge involved for anything.
I'm in. I'm totally in. That
honestly,
sounds great.
So me and my buddies play this usually after our big golf tournaments. We have a Friday game where we get 30 or 40 guys at the club and we'll play after the Friday game. It is a great, like, in the locker room after 18 holes, kind of everyone wants to throw money in, everyone wants to have a drink or two, everyone wants to hang out, but I don't want to sit there and play poker and like try to out bluff my buddy who's sitting next to me and take his $100 or whatever. Like, I just want to sit there and do something and gamble without actually thinking about anything. That's what it's for. It's fantastic. Horses run around the board. The horse that you roll the dice the most times, that horse wins. I mean, that's very simplified, but there's not a whole lot to it, really.
All right. Absolutely love that. All right. Well, thanks for being in here. Thanks for the question, Zach. We already have questions coming in, not just about the Truist, but Joseph Boza has a question about the Myrtle Beach Classic, which I've got answers to Myrtle Beach. We've got answers to Truist. So if you've got a question or you got an outright you like, whether it's in the Truist or the Myrtle or anything else, let us know, and Jason and I will hit it, especially DFS related as well. Betting DFS, lineup construction. Happy to answer those ownership questions. Can answer some of those as well, Jason. But let's talk about maybe a jump-off point here when it comes to Truist. I do think it's so interesting that Scottie isn't here. And I understand, and Jason, you can correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding, he really wanted to play in Texas. And after the aftermath of that, he wants a week off before the PGA Championship. But it does sort of, it's interesting because without Scottie, it gives me some relief. But what's interesting about Rory McIlroy is he's getting the Scottie treatment from an outright standpoint. And to me, Jason, that provides a lot of value for that second, third, fourth tier of player that we're willing to bet on. Your thoughts on Rory being so short? I mean, it does feel like it's a pretty good course fit for him, but are you looking at Rory or are you looking elsewhere?
So I get that they're two completely different tournaments, but I said this last week before the CJ Cup, Byron Nelson, that just Scottie was too short for me. I was going to take a chance on some bigger numbers, and if you get beat by Scottie, you get beat by Scottie. Obviously, he was the best player in the field, but I just couldn't get down to that number. And as we saw, that number never got any longer. He was first-round leader and went wire to wire, and the number just kept getting shorter to the point where it was insanely comical at like minus 20,000 going into Sunday's final round, that it was basically a coronation for the last 18 holes. That said, we could have very much the same thing in terms of Rory McIlroy this week. And this could be one of those instances where it's like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Should have been on Rory McIlroy. Yeah, he's, on Sunday afternoon, we might be sitting here saying, well, yeah, he's the best player in the field. And yeah, he had the shortest odds for a reason, but he's playing better than anybody else this year, and he goes out and wins the golf tournament. That is all very, very possible anytime Rory tees it up. That said, I'm going to maintain the same thing that I maintained last week before the CJ Cup, Byron Nelson, that if a player is that short and we have too many variables, and for me, the variables last week were you got to shoot 30 under to go win this golf tournament. Well, Scottie did it. Kudos to him. Congratulations. I wasn't on it. You know what? If they played it again this week, I probably wouldn't be on him again at plus 280 or whatever that number was. For Rory McIlroy, the variable this week is a golf course that he's never played before. we've never seen on the PGA Tour before. And quite frankly, I'm just not getting down to the plus 400, plus 450 number that you have to get to play Rory this week. I think there's too many guys that are going to be in the mix.
I think the idea, and I know every tournament's different and every situation is different, but I think the idea of Rory getting the Scottie treatment, and those are my words, right? I'm just looking at the odds and making a comparison. I don't want to say it's ridiculous, but like I'm so not interested in that because I do think, I understand Rory's having that year, or he's trending to that year that Scottie was having last year, although not quite as good on the front end. But the gap between Scottie and Rory to me is still there, tournament to tournament. Jason, do you agree? Like, are we treating Rory now like we treated Scottie last year at this time, or should we?
Quite there, and we probably shouldn't be quite there. Scottie's win percentage was higher than Rory's, but it's really close.
Yeah,
it's really close right now. I'm actually very intrigued by the numbers next week. And I know over the next week and a half, we're going to be talking a lot of PGA Championship, but I am very intrigued at the fact that it varies right now book to book. We've got some with co-favorites. We've got some with Scottie as an actual favorite over Rory next week. I think a lot of that has to do with the public recency bias on the fact that Scottie just shot 31 under and dominated a field, and Rory's like, he's old news. We haven't seen him in a few weeks, and so we've forgotten about Rory. But on a golf course where Rory's won 4 times, I'm not so sure that Scottie being the favorite's the right favorite that we have for the PGA Championship next week, and that could change in the next 7 days. But I think that's very intriguing, and yeah, I'm with you. I cannot get to that number on Rory. If it looks like he shoots 70, 71, and there's a decent number to pick up, then maybe I will. But I still just don't have a whole lot of interest in him this week, where he's looking ahead to next week already.
Yeah, I agree. Let's transition now to some questions. Again, if you have a question about Rory or anybody else in this tournament, whether it's DFS or betting related, let us know. It's interesting, Jason. I kind of love this, and I'm going to do this one really quickly because I think people want to hear Truist before they want to hear Myrtle Beach questions, but we're taking them all. And Joseph Boza was the first in. He says, to show Myrtle Beach Classic some love, Mackenzie Hughes, according to DraftKings, is the favorite at plus 2,000. I believe BetMGM, DraftKings, FanDuel pretty much have the same odds. Mackenzie Hughes at the top. Are those good odds if we wanted to throw a few bucks that way? As an emphatic no, right, Jason? I mean, that's no disrespect to Mackenzie Hughes, but these alt events, we're really not looking. I mean, I kind of am looking at the top of the board. If you saw my outrights on the early wedge to some degree, but it's not 20-1.
I will argue. I will disagree just slightly in that it's not an emphatic no. The odds are really good. The player's not the player that I want. But if we're looking at just plus 2,000 for the favorite at an opposite field event, like that gets me very interested. Now, I don't like Mackenzie Hughes at this one. It looks like some of your bombers should play well here once again. Chris Gotterup won last year, and he had guys like Ryan Fox and Davis Thompson right behind him on the leaderboard. So I think you just basically bomb and gouge your way around this Dunes Golf and Beach Club. So Hughes is not a guy that I'm looking at, but I think the number's really good. If you're just like, I don't know, I want a couple bucks on Myrtle Beach, I'm going to take a guy who's maybe the best player in the field. Sure, but yeah, that's not where I would play it. By the way, just sort of as a little one-off, a little segue here. How the hell is Tom Kim not only not in a signature event, but playing the opposite field event and not the favorite in the opposite field event? That, to me, if you had said that 3 months ago, you would have thought it was crazy.
Well, yeah, but he was still playing bad 3 months ago, too. I mean, he's had some smatterings of good play, but it's been about a year and a half.
And we're not even talking. I mean, you and I did a show together last night, and like we, between us, I think made 6 picks for Myrtle Beach, 7 picks, and neither one of us even sniffed Tom Kim.
Josh, do you have that to put up for us, our Myrtle Beach picks? Because I think people will be interested here. Ryan Fox, Victor Perez.
You get it up quicker, Josh.
I know. This guy's amazing. So, Jason, these guys, I like Ryan Fox. I've been kind of betting Ryan Fox here and there. Even at the Zurich, I was big on Ryan Fox as well. That fits the description of some of these kind of bomb and gouge guys that could score 40, 50-1. And so do my guys. Thorbjorn Olsen, Kevin Yu, Ricky Castillo, Vince Whaley. Those are my outrights. Do you want to comment on any of these? I want to release some breaking news. I'm going to give out my first round leaders after we talk about this.
Okay. Yeah, look, I'm looking at big hitters in my picks. I'm looking at guys who have won elsewhere around the world. Ryan Fox and Victor Perez, both multi-time winners on the DP World Tour. They've been there, done that. I spoke with Chris Gotterup, the defending champion, on PGA Tour Radio yesterday. Take a look at his record, guys. He's either all or nothing this year. It's either a missed cut or a top 25. I asked him about it. He's like, yeah, I don't know. Don't really have an explanation, but that's kind of cool. I'll take it because consistency at a lower level doesn't really get rewarded at the PGA Tour level. But if you play either really good or not so good, well, that tends to work out, and it's working out for him so far. I kind of like Gotterup. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back-to-back. That number's a little shorter. It's about 25-1, but if you're looking for one of the guys near the top of the board, that's the guy that I would play.
I mean, that's the thing. That's the profile. And there's so many guys that fit that profile here, which is why I wouldn't take Mackenzie Hughes. And not that Mackenzie Hughes can't do that, but to me, there's guys at 50, 60, 70-1 that can do the Chris Gotterup thing, which is why I want to go down the board. But to your point, I know what you're saying about Mackenzie Hughes, which is most of these tournaments, like the signature event, we're getting guys at plus 450 or plus 280. So it's nice to see somebody at the top of the board at 20-1. Nonetheless, I like some of the odds that we put out there in that 40 to 80-1 range. I even had some long shots, by the way. I think it was Paul Walker at Myrtle Beach and
Danny Walker.
Danny Walker, excuse me, and Jeremy Paul, right. The fast and furious Paul Walker long shots, Danny Walker and Jeremy Paul at 80 and 70-1. Here are my first round leaders, and then we'll get to some Truist questions. And of course, we can get to more Myrtle questions too. Okay, I'm reading off a list because I haven't published this anywhere, not even in the SportsLine Discord, not on Twitter. This is to you all first. I've got 5, which is kind of a lot, but it's I only gave out 2 for the Truist. So here's 5. We're going to go Alejandro Tosti at 50-1. We're going to go Norgard Moeller at 50-1. Again, these fit the description of the guys we're looking for here. We're going to go Vince Whaley at 55-1.
Yeah.
Joseph Bramlett, 66-1.
Oh, yeah.
And then finally, Jeremy Paul, again, one of my outrights at 70-1. So it's Norgard Moeller, it's Tosti, it's Whaley, Bramlett, and Jeremy Paul. Any thoughts there, Jason? Not on first round leader. Any of those names stick out to you, though?
Yeah, Tosti and Bramlett, look, very high volatility rates, and that's what I'm looking for. For those who haven't heard me say it a million times already, I'll say it for the first time. The fact that for first-round leader plays, I'm personally is better at this than I am. I don't hit a lot of first-round leader bets. I will admit that. I like trying to hit, one of these big numbers, but I want high volatility. I want a guy that's either shooting 63 or 78, and it doesn't really matter. Sort of like your long shot outright plays. Look, second place doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if he has a good week. Yeah. It needs to be a great week. And same thing with first round leader plays. It needs to be a great first round, not a good first round. So you don't get like a good pat on the back if your guy shoots 68 and he's 4 shots back and you're like, oh, well, that was a pretty good pick. He played pretty well. Doesn't really matter. You don't win any money that way. So I want guys with that high upside. It can go in the wrong direction. You could be 10 minutes into your bet taking place. The guy could be double bogey on the first hole, and you're like, well, so much for that. Burn that money, but you're taking a chance here. So Tosti and Bramlett are the 2 guys that stick out to me there.
If you're listening to the podcast, I encourage you when you can to watch the YouTube show when we do any of these shows, but including this one, because Josh was able to put that up in I literally rattled off 5 names that he did not know. He was not aware of these names, and he was able to, it's harder than you think, folks, because he's doing some other stuff too, and he's able to put those up on the lower third here with Tosti, Moeller, Whaley, Bramlett, and Jeremy Paul. I almost said Jake Paul. And then we got Yannick Paul. We got that parlay for the Turkish Open, Jeremy Paul, Yannick Paul parlay, which is going to pay guys, $1 million to 1.
Just in case you missed the show last night, we're throwing out the twin parlay, the Jeremy Paul, Yannick Paul parlay, to get them in at Myrtle Beach and the Turkish Airlines Open. I put it in last night. It's a big number. It looks pretty cool. Looks pretty cool. You put in the $2 bet to win 6 figures. I'm like, let's see what happens.
Well, what's so cool about that, though, is that Jeremy, I haven't been tracking Yannick Paul as much as Jeremy because he hasn't been playing on the PGA Tour quite as much lately as Jeremy. But you could also top 10 that for an insanely silly number, right? It's not 6 figures, but you could put $5 on that and actually have a legitimate sweat because the return on a top 10 for either of those 2 guys in a parlay is going to be ridiculous.
Everything has a six-figure return if you put enough on it.
Yeah, well, that's true. Zach Kosecki says, loving Mav. He says, thank you, guys. Thank you, Zach, for being in here. Really appreciate you. He says, loving Mav McNeely and Berger for a top 20 parlay and sprinkle Valimaki over at Myrtle Beach, which is something EC did, I recall. Let's see. What's the rest of the question? Any one you like in Philly simply in the top 30 market? Jason, any thoughts?
First of all, my two finishing position plays on the early wedge preview pod that we did yesterday were Berger and McNeely. Those are two guys that I like a lot. I mistakenly said, the one thing I do want to clarify, though, I mistakenly said that McNeely's had more of a ceiling this year and Berger's had a higher floor. Mm-hmm. Berger's got top three finishes as well, just like McNeely. So it's not like Berger's ceiling isn't quite there. Berger's ceiling is very high as well. You look at what he's done since the beginning of February. He's played 7 events. That's 4 strokes gain categories each week. Off the tee, iron play, around the greens, on the greens. He is 26 for 28 in positive strokes gained. He only lost off the tee a little bit at the Players and on the greens just barely against the field at the RBC Heritage. Everything else, he's been above field average. Scottie can't say that. Rory can't say that. I don't believe anybody else can say that over this time period. Daniel Berger is playing some tremendous golf. He will absolutely be on my card, not only this week for a bunch of different plays. I'll have him a little outright. I'll have him for this finishing position bet and some parlays with those as well. But also next week, I think Quail Hollow should be a very good golf course for him. And that's kind of what I look at these major championships, the guys who have been doing it well for a few months leading in, and Berger certainly is there. McNeely's there. To answer the question here from Zach, I like Valimaki as well. For a top 30, and obviously for a top 30, you're looking at somebody a little further down the board. Take a look at Eric Cole. Eric Cole, I don't believe, has finished outside the top 30 in his last 5 starts. He's a guy that's played a decent amount of golf up in the Northeast, and I don't think this one's going to scare him whatsoever, playing in a bigger field with some big boys out there. Eric Cole plays every week, loves playing golf as much as anybody on the PGA Tour. And I think when he gets it going, he really gets it going. Shorter golf course should be good for him as well.
Mav McNeely is somebody coming into this tournament, Jason, that I kind of ignored. Like Berger, I didn't ignore. It's hard to ignore, but Mav I ignored, and now I'm starting to think, okay, I think Zach is on to something here. Like, first of all, he has a little bit more length than I thought in terms of off the tee, which I do think is going to be somewhat important here. But the ball striking's pretty much been there. And the putter can really get there with Mav too. I think Mav is super interesting, especially from a DFS standpoint. He's in that 8,300 range, getting some ownership, but not a lot because that 8K range is getting kind of ignored. I think of the two, like Berger, like makes a ton of sense. But I point out Mav because I kind of ignored him. And I think he's a really interesting guy that can kind of float up the board.
If I'm not mistaken, on DraftKings this week, DFS, I believe Keegan Bradley and Maverick McNeely are just about the same number. Is that correct?
Yes.
Keegan,
yes.
8,100, if I'm remembering correctly.
8,300 and 8,100. That's correct.
Yeah, okay. I'm seeing a ton of Keegan out there. I am not good at predicting ownership percentages, so you can find those numbers out there that are going to be better than what I have. But from what I've seen in the industry, there's a lot of Keegan Bradley love. I expect that to filter into DFS as well. And so if you're looking for a pivot from Keegan, I think Mav is a very, very nice pivot there in DFS.
Yeah, in that lower 8K range, he's picking up some ownership at around, it's tracking to me at around 15%. Mav is in that 10% range. And then you get to the upper 8K range, and that's where you see a lot of ownership on guys like Daniel Berger, Corey Connors, Sepp Straka getting some as well. I think, just so everybody knows, an interesting pivot, especially if you believe in hey, bombers are going to be good here. Min-Woo Lee's not going to get a lot of ownership. So if you're really I think a pivot off of Keegan would be Mav McNeely, but then like a true pivot, like 10% less potentially would be Min-Woo Lee. Jason, you don't like Min-Woo?
I don't. So I will give you sort of my little breakdown here of Cricket Club. I played there a few years ago. I don't know that playing there necessarily for one day on a summer afternoon gives you a good outlook on a few years later, which PGA Tour players are going to be able to thrive there. That said, it's 7,100 yards. It's playing soft. I think over the next 24 hours, we're going to hear players going, oh, man, you got to be on this side of the fairway to have a good angle in. You don't want to miss long. You gotta be able to get up and down from these bunkers. There are a lot of bunkers on the golf course. All that said, I just don't see it playing that difficult for these players. It's a short golf course. It's playing soft. These guys are going to, if not tear it up, I think something close to 20 under wins this golf tournament. But I'm looking at players who are longer hitters that have that length when they need it, but tend to play good golf on short golf courses. And there are a bunch of guys that sort of fit this mold. Wyndham Clark is a guy that has not had a good year, but has a big upside in the outright markets. I think Wyndham Clark makes a ton of sense, and I'm going to take a shot on him in DFS in a bunch of lineups as well, because I think the ownership will be pretty low. Ownership should be very low on Tony Finau, who also tends to play well on shorter courses. And then, just because we were talking about him, Mav McNeely fits this as well. Mav McNeely won the RSM Classic a couple of years ago, or actually last year, sorry. And that's another one that's a short golf course for a guy that hits it a long way. I don't know what it is about these guys, whether it's I tend to believe, it's some sort of combination of I can get after it when I need to on a few holes that, okay, go carry that bunker down the right side. I've got enough to go do that, but I can take driver out of my hands and not be at a disadvantage when I need to do that as well. I think these guys are going to have a good week, those long hitters who play short course as well.
Fair enough. Very, very good breakdown. All right, let's go to Mr. Big says, Rory is minus 125 to finish top 6. This seems like a can't miss on this particular course, right? So there's a couple things that we can break down with this sentence, Jason, that are interesting. Mm-hmm. First of all, you say on this particular course as if we definitely know what this course has to offer. And I think we have a good idea, but there's no way that Jason and I, or really anybody else, can be like, this is definitely the profile you're looking for, because we just don't have the history on at Philly Cricket Club. And also, Jason, I like Rory, but I'm not so if you inserted Scottie instead of Rory, I still wouldn't have taken it, but I would have been like, yeah, I kind of get it. I kind of get top 5 Scottie here in this field, which is a good field, mind you, at minus 125 to finish top 6. Top 6, an interesting number versus top 5. Of course, I assume that includes ties, but either way, I'm not going to give Rory that treatment at minus 125. How about you?
Look, Rory McIlroy is playing better golf than anybody else in the world right now. I get it. There's not a golf course where you go to and you say, oh, I don't think Rory can play well here. He's playing well everywhere, and so he should have a good week. That said, I'm less confident in him having a top 6 finish this week than some other weeks. You know what? Quite frankly, if Mr. Big, if you're hell-bent on putting money on Rory McIlroy for a top 6, just do it for next week. You probably get better odds. Probably have maybe even plus money odds on Rory for a top 6 finish at Quail Hollow as opposed to a golf course he's never played before.
Yeah, because he dominates Quail Hollow. Maybe you'll get that top 5 market at a plus number with the live guys and Scottie being back there as well. That's an interesting take. Alex Jones says, I will be hammering a Rory over Scottie head-to-head tournament matchup if offered. I assume you're talking next week, Alex Jones. Yeah. Because Scottie's not in this one, but any thoughts there? In Quail Hollow, I guess I would have to defer to Rory a little bit. No, I don't know.
When it comes to tournament head-to-head matchups, I'm usually not playing the big boys.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
Frankly, could Rory win? Yeah, absolutely. Could Scottie win? Yeah, absolutely. They're both really good players. I'm looking to find an edge where I'm looking down the list. I'm like, all right, it's Minwoo Lee against Siwoo Kim. Which one of those guys? I can find an edge here. The big names, I'm usually just skipping right past them unless there's something about them that I really especially like and something about the other player that I don't.
Which is why, if you notice in the DFS conversations, those of you that listen or watch that on Mondays at 7:00 here on the SportsLine YouTube channel, sometimes we'll be breaking down that initial range, the Scottie range, the 10K and above range. And Scottie and Roy tend to stand out, but then you get to the Collins or the JTs or whoever it is, depending on the tournament. And it's hard. You're kind of splitting hairs a little bit because these guys are at the top for a reason. So that's why the margins in terms of the differences between some of these golfers, especially when you're talking about the 2 best, it's not necessarily the number's not going to be. The number's not going to induce you to be like, oh, I really like this, So it's just those are ones I agree with you. I never really consciously thought of that, but I tend to avoid those as well.
And my favorite matchups here are the ones where not only do I like this side of it, but I really don't like this side. So, okay, I'm getting a decent number. And one's going in this direction, one's going in that direction. With a Rory Scheffler type of matchup, I'm like, yeah, I like both of those guys because they're both really good. So I'm not finding that two-way edge. There might be a one-way edge, like, oh, I think Rory's going to win, and so I like him against everybody, including Scottie, but I'm certainly not fading Scottie. It's not like I don't like Scottie in that matchup. And this is not germane to the PGA Championship next week. This is just in general how I look at head-to-head matchups for tournament plays, that I'm probably not taking the ones featuring guys on the top of the board.
And Alex is clarifying. He's saying he's been doing it all year and he's been winning on that. And so that's great. The difference, of course, now versus then is that Scottie, at least as of last week, appears to be at least, 80 to 90% of the Scottie that we think we saw last year. And so maybe now's the time where Scottie's come around where you're not going to be able to hit those head-to-heads like you did on the front end of the year. But good for you for doing that, because Alex, you're absolutely right. On the front end of the year, Scottie was still probably overvalued in matchups like that, and Rory bettors were able to take advantage. All right, we got to take advantage of a break, and we're going to answer more of your questions. Put them in there. Any outrights you have, any questions, any DFS questions, let us know before we get out of here. But first, let's take a break and hear a message from our partners.
Get ready.
Wait a second. I thought we were going tubing.
All 3 Sonic the Hedgehog movies and Knuckles are now streaming on Paramount Plus.
And everyone loves it.
Every adventure,
Just try to keep up.
every face-off,
This ends now.
and every moment that will have you saying,
Where have you been? My entire life!
It's showtime.
all 3 Sonic the Hedgehog movies and the entire Sonic universe are now streaming on Paramount Plus.
All right, we're back on the Early Wedge, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Let's see. Larry Marcel says round scores for both Hovland and Spieth under 68.5 at plus 100. First round, great value here. So correct me if I'm wrong. This is a par 70, right? So they got to be 2 under here to hit
Correct.
this?
Yes.
So It's interesting you picked those two, Larry, because those are I literally put out just 2 first round leaders, and it's those 2 guys. And I know Spieth is one of your first round leaders as well. Any thoughts on this, Jason?
Yeah, I love Spieth at this number. Absolutely love him. He is, as I mentioned yesterday, he sounded more optimistic about his game after that final round 62 at the Nelson this past week than we've heard in a couple of years. And I tend to listen to Jordan Spieth when he talks about himself. You can tell earlier in the year, Jordan would play a nice round. He'd come off the golf course and reporters would stick a microphone in his face and he'd say, yeah, I'm not quite 100%. It feels good. It's getting there. We're progressing well. After Sunday, he's like, no, I'm hitting the ball the way I want to. I'm hitting the ball the way I need to right now. It feels really good. And that confidence in his voice tells me that we should be confident in him as well. So whether that manifests itself in an outright play this week, and I will have him outright, whether that's more of a first round play, and I like him for first round leader, as you can see on the screen right there. So if you can get him at under 68.5 at even money, I think that's a tremendous bet. Sia, I know you like Hovland for the first round. I don't hate it. Quite frankly, if I can get under 68.5, under 69 for a lot of these top players, I would kind of fire on all of them. And you might go, of the top 10 on the board, you might go 7-3. And I think you have a pretty good day.
Yeah, especially if you're looking at, even money or even plus money for some of the guys as you filter down the board. Like that call out, Larry Marcel. Mike B says, guys, I need a favorite for Truist. Was thinking of playing JT. Well, I guess he means a favorite to bet on, Jason. I guess I'd appreciate a little bit more context there, but he's not my favorite and he's not yours because we didn't bet on JT. I like JT. I just preferred to go different directions. I went with Spieth, Jason. I went with Ludwig, and I went with Victor Hovland to win it. I just liked the value there. Do you have any comments on JT?
I don't think, and I saw this question at some point in the chat, and I'd have to go back and find it here, but someone was asking, do we think that the players are looking too far ahead to the PGA Championship next week and not focused on this week? And I would say, by and large, no. In general, most of these guys are like, especially with it being a PGA Championship, take nothing away from the PGA, but not the Masters, where it's like, okay, I'm gearing up for that one. It's like, no, we have 2 good weeks of really good golf tournaments coming up. If there's one player that I'm like, okay, he's kind of looking ahead just a little bit, it would probably be JT. It's JT with, okay, I got the win in my back pocket from Harbour Town a few weeks ago. I am a 2-time winner of the PGA Championship. I know I can go win that golf tournament. This is like all right, just get my get my game back in order a little bit, and let's go get to Charlotte where I know I can win a golf tournament. So he's the one guy that I could see kind of looking ahead. Doesn't mean he can't play well. Just means he's not going to be on the card for me.
I think JT is playing great. I cashed on him like just over 2 weeks ago at 20-1. I think he could do great here. He just happened to not be one of my picks. So again, we're looking at the tournament outrights courtesy of Josh here. Jason's got Patrick Cantlay at plus 2,000, Jordan Spieth at plus 2,800. I've got Ludwig at plus 1,800, and Jordan Spieth and Victor Hovland both at plus 2,800. Honestly, Cantlay would go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I have good news from Mike, who said, sorry, I'm in a pool. Just need someone to make the cut. The good news for you, Mike, is that there's no cut this week, so you got it. Congratulations, you did it. By the way, speaking of which, I saw that the PGA of America announced the field for the PGA Championship next week. There are 154 players. Billy Horschel announced that he's having hip surgery, so it's down to 153. There's 3 spots available. The top player in the Truist Championship field will get in next week. Well, 71 of the 72 players, I believe, are already in the field. Congratulations to Jeff Stenberg's guy, Michael Thorbjornsen, who is not in the field yet, but is the only player. So he essentially just has to finish the Truist Championship.
Wow.
The highest finisher on the board who's not in next week and qualify via that qualification.
That is amazing. A lot of people like Michael Thorbjornsen this week. Jason, are you one of them? I know Jeff is. Are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like him for we were talking top 30s earlier, top 20s. It's like an aggressive top 20 play, top 30. Yes. Again, another Northeast guy. We're looking to target these Northeast guys who grew up on bent grass greens. That's Michael Thorbjornsen. Finished top 5 at the Travelers Championship in Connecticut when he was still an amateur. So yeah, I like him. He's riding hot right now.
Jeff Stenberg in the chat is just all the exclamation points right now. Absolutely loving the Thor talk. Rick Funcannon, thanks for watching. Thanks for hitting the like button. He says, do you think Rory first round leader plus 1,200 is worth a sprinkle? I'm almost never going to sprinkle a first round leader at plus 1,200 because of the variance that Jason talked about a few minutes ago. I didn't go too far down the board because, again, this is a signature event. I do expect a first round leader to be sort of in that top half, although it might not be. But you saw what we had. Would you consider Rory at first round leader plus 1,200? It's a rhetorical question, right? You're not doing that.
I'm not. And again, these are all questions that could make us look very silly.
Yeah.
Once the tournament starts, just like all the Scottie Scheffler questions 7 days ago. And it's like, nah, number's too short. I know Scottie's great. I know he can do it. The number's too short. Not playing him outright, not playing him first round leader. And of course, he won outright. He was first round leader. He cashed everything you could bet on him. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot. He was the best player in that field. That kind of made sense. So same thing here with Rory. Look, is he the best player in the field? Yes. Is it a golf course he can play well? Yes, because it's a golf course. He plays all golf courses well. He's riding hot this year. Could this make us look silly? And we say, nah, I'm staying away from Rory in the first round leader market. I'm staying away from him in the outright market. And he goes out and does exactly what Scottie did last week. Yeah, it's very possible. And we come back on here a week from now and go, oops, sorry, didn't get Rory in that market. But I'm still staying away.
There's too many good players in this field to consider this. The only reason to consider this, in my opinion, is you definitely don't want to take the plus 450 or whatever it's being offered. And you're like, well, I want to get a bigger number on Rory somehow. How do I get it? Oh, first round. So like, I get that logic, but nonetheless, I expect Rory to be good over the 4 rounds, better than most over the 4 rounds. But in 1 round, I mean, you've got so many big names here. I would just go down the board at like maybe 2 or 3 times the odds at somebody that has similar talent, just not necessarily playing quite as well as Rory McIlroy. Paul L says, got to go with Hoagie in Philly, right? Kind of the Eric Cole conversation, right? He says the real question is a hoagie a burger? And of course, he's making a pun or play on words on Daniel Berger. Meat between bread checks out in my book. Any response to that, Jason Sobel?
Was it Pat's and Geno's? You got to go to Phillips. Is the place to go for cheesesteaks in Philly. Hopefully after a long night at Harrah's. That was my usual go-to whenever I see my buddies up in Philly. Golf all afternoon, Harrah's, then Phillips at about midnight.
So is a hoagie a burger? And do you like Tom Hoagie?
I'm still not going to answer the question. No, I love the pun. I'm not going to I'm not going to crush Paul here for a bad play on is a hoagie a burger, but it's a good pun, so I give him credit. But no, a hoagie's not a burger. Burger's not a hoagie.
Of course not.
You put both of them in their DFS lineup and sandwich them, if you will.
Nice. Wow. Jason, do you like Tom Hoagie this week?
Yeah. No.
Fair
I don't
enough.
know. Second shot golf course could be. I think you're gonna have to make a lot of putts, and he doesn't do that. So, not especially. But I'm more inclined to like him a little bit next week. Harder golf course.
Do you like pineapple on your pizza?
I'm okay with it. I know that's a big triggering thing for everyone. Like, it's probably not my first order. Like, if I'm calling in for the pizza order, I'm probably not like, I need pineapple. If I'm at a party and there's some pineapple on a pizza, it's like, this is the last one we have left. I'm like, yeah, sure. Why not?
All right. Josh in the producer chair saying he's gained at least 2.1 strokes with the flat stick 5 tournaments in a row. I think that's referring to Tom Hoagie. Yeah, certainly hot there. And we know he can get hot with the approach play.
Fair.
Of course, the putter can regress too, as we know. Let's see. Mr. Big says, I think Sam Stevens is going to have a good week. Sneaky top 10 pick for him. I don't know about Sam Stevens. Your thoughts?
Played really well last week.
Yeah.
I was on him a little bit last week. Not sure I'm there with him this week, but I do like him long term. Can I tell you what the one thing, and I hate saying this publicly, this is just between us. One thing that I don't like about Sam Stevens, and this is going to sound awful, because I don't mean it. He's a good family man. And I spoke with him on radio about a month or two ago. I think he's 28 years old. He's got 3 kids, 4th on the way. They're all traveling together. It's like the Jason Day, Tony Finau story all over again, except Jason Day and Tony Finau were established superstars by the time they had their 5th kids and 6th kids. I've watched, and especially like Aaron Baddeley. I've traveled with Aaron and his family before, and they've got 12 suitcases and 7 kids, and there's a lot going on. And to be able to play good golf in that environment, I think is really, really difficult. Sam Stevens sounds like he's traveling with the whole crew on a weekly basis. It's really hard to do. And I know that we're usually looking at strokes gain stats, and we're looking at history on certain golf courses. We don't look at this kind of stuff long term, but like, this affects a player. I mean, I'm telling you, there's going to be a time. Specific incident. I traveled with the Battleys. This is probably 12 years ago. He's going to Houston for the Houston Open, and I see him about 2 days later. And we traveled on Monday, and on Wednesday I said, hey, Bads, what's going on? How you doing? You get some practice in? He goes, nah, one of the kids got sick yesterday, so my wife had to take him to the walk-in clinic, and I had to stay with the other kids. And then when they came back, the other kids wanted to go somewhere, so we did this. And I'm like, you gonna play golf this week? Like, I'm sitting there thinking, I didn't say anything, but like, it's really, really difficult. Think about it. Anyone who's on this right now and travels for business, you're like, hey, I want to bring my whole family, except my family includes like 4, 5, 6 kids. It's really, really difficult to get your work done. I know you love your family. I know you love your kids. I know you want to be around them. None of this is meant to say like Sam Stevens is a bad person for traveling with his family. I think it's fantastic. I think it's a great idea. I just worry a little bit about the guys who are less established trying to emulate some of the superstars who have been able to do this.
I mean, it makes complete sense. I mean, it's if you want to be a great dad and you want to travel with your family, and like, that's great. But unfortunately, there is that sacrifice. You're not going to be quite as focused on the golf. You might not even be able to practice as much or play as much to your example. So that's an interesting footnote on Sam. All right. Scott Wise says, would you sprinkle on the Paul brothers? I guess we answered that. This is interesting. Alex Jones says siblings parlay. Minwoo top 20.
Okay.
Minji, his sister, top 10. Yannick top 20. Jeremy top 20 plus 9,100. That seems doable.
Right up my alley. I would normally never say no to any of this. I had Minji in some parlays last week. She played pretty well, 2 under on the first day, and then like 6 under the second day, and then she withdrew. So be very careful. I'm not sure. I assume it was an injury. So be careful with Minji Lee this week.
Very, very interesting stuff. All right. Jeff Sandberg says, Sia works out too much to enjoy the Philly cuisine. Okay, fair enough. Josh, can you come in here? I want to hear what your outright is this week. I don't know that we are privy to that because you weren't on the Tuesday show with us. We had Troy helping us out there. Do you have an outright or maybe just a bet that you love?
I think I'm going Spieth this week.
Let's go.
Yep.
I'm in. I'm ready to be hurt or loved. One of the two. I've just kind of been. He's playing far too well for me to feel like every Thursday at like 3:23 in the afternoon, I'm like, will you do something? Like just do something. Yeah, it felt that way on Thursday at TPC Craig Ranch. It felt that way, maybe not quite that early at Augusta. Pretty soon, it was like, well, he's just out of it. And even though he played awesome last week, he didn't put the 4 rounds together like you have to when Scottie. I mean, it wouldn't have mattered. Scottie would have beat him anyways, even if he was great on Thursday. But yeah, let's go Spieth. And it's just about the last thing that we need to turn the intensity for Quail Hollow next week up to 1 million, as if Spieth's coming off a win.
Jason, is that like the best case scenario for the PGA Championship? Publicity wise, PR wise?
Yes.
I mean,
I think so. I don't think this PGA Championship needs a whole lot more publicity.
Yeah.
The storylines are fantastic going in. We've got Rory on fire going for a second straight major. And if he does get it, then we go to Oakmont, which I think you can narrow the field at Oakmont. They had media day there yesterday. I think it's going to be like one of 8 guys. Like it's going to be the top of the board. And I just don't see anyone behind them winning that golf tournament. And then, of course, we go to Royal Portrush in his home country of Northern Ireland, and I'm not giving him 2 more majors before that. But if somehow Rory goes to Northern Ireland with 3 majors, like that's a big deal. That said, we've got Rory next week going for 2 in a row. We've got Scottie on the heels of a big win. JT going back to the site of his first major championship, having won recently. Bryson coming off a win on Live, and he's played well in all the majors over the past year. And then we've got Xander Schauffele as the defending champ, starting to trend in the right direction. Jordan Spieth, yes, if Jordan wins this week, or at least comes close, he doesn't even have to win, just shows some good form once again, going into a place where, hey, the career Grand Slam is on our minds already from last month. Those are as many storylines as I think we've had going into a major in the last half decade or so, like since Tiger won the 2019 Masters, probably.
Go ahead, Josh.
It's the one thing that Spieth hasn't really done yet, which is really put 4 rounds together. If he finishes second, but it feels like he had it all 4 days, I think that's super exciting. Like he didn't even gain all 4 rounds in Texas last week. He lost strokes just barely on Thursday, but he did lose strokes. If he puts 4 rounds together, then it's going to be awesome.
You brought up Xander. I think this is a good place. Go ahead, Jason.
Sorry, you can continue. I'm looking up Spieth's record at Quail as we speak because I haven't quite gotten there with my research yet for next week. But let's see very quickly. Here we go. Jordan Spieth only played that event at Quail Hollow 3 times. He was 32nd back in 2013, missed the cut in 2023, and 29th in 2024. That is not a great barometer.
When did the wrist issue pop up, though? Was it as early as 2023 that the wrist issue popped up, or are we talking about last year?
No, I think it was last year.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe after this point last year, about this time last year.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is Jordan Spieth is, last year, him finishing T29 after the cut in 23. This is definitely the best driving version of Jordan Spieth we've ever seen.
True.
Yes.
And he gained quite a bit off the tee last year at the Wells Fargo. And he's a way better approach player right now than he was at that point last year. So I think the barrier of entry at Quail Hollow is, do you drive the golf ball well? And the answer for Spieth nowadays is yes. So if he can make some putts, then maybe we're cooking.
Yeah, looks like we're on the Spieth bandwagon, particularly this week, maybe next as well. Okay, before we close the show, I got to ask you about 2 players. and I'll reveal them one at a time. Very important players in this conversation this week. Xander Schauffele, all I want is maybe some analysis, but really where does he finish? Where does Xander finish this week? Jason, I'll start with you.
Xander finishes in a share of 9th place this week.
That was right about where I was going. Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, somewhere around 8th.
That's so funny. Okay. I was literally, because he said 9th, and I was like, okay, now I'm going to say 8th. And then Josh, you said 8th. So I'm just going to agree. The other big name that we really need to discuss a little bit more in terms of where he's going to finish, of course, is Michael Thorbjornsen. Josh, you first.
Hit it all. Well, first, of course, I didn't think we needed to make that distinction. But it is interesting. If he hits it straight, he can hit it over everything. All the dog legs. That is interesting. That would be a massive step to go from not really threatening to win a golf tournament on the PGA Tour to winning one in this field. That would be quite the step. But who knows? Brian Campbell won in Mexico this year, so it still wouldn't be the craziest winner of the year.
Anything is possible. Jason,
can win. Anything is possible. I will take Thorbjornsen for a 22nd place finish, enough to cash our top 30s and break our hearts on the top 20s.
All right, I'm gonna go 39th. So maybe if you had him in a top 40, you can cash that. 39th for Thor. Sorry, Jeff. That's respectable in a very good field, 72-person field. All right, gentlemen, that was good conversation. We went 45 minutes. We do this every single Wednesday at 10:30. Bring more DFS questions. We want to, if you're making lineups, we want to answer those questions too, whether it's about ownership or lineup construction, or whether we're playing this guy or fading this guy, whatever the case may be. Happy to answer those as well. But all the betting questions, all the OAD questions, all of that stuff, we are happy to answer. Josh, go ahead.
I think last thing on the Truist is, I think the person playing chess this week is not making very many picks until Thursday night. You might miss out on a number like 1 or 2, but like even Rory is probably not going to be much shorter than 4.5 to 1 unless he's leading by 6, right? I mean, it doesn't feel like he can't go much further. But it's important to say that we don't really know. Not really. But 18 holes might shed some light on things, and we really might have an idea, and there might be value to be had on guys just after 18 holes. Make some bets before because it's fun, but I think really paying attention to Thursday and going from there is not a bad idea this week.
That's a great call. Great call. And go ahead, Jason, and then I have some follow-up.
I was just going to say, Josh could probably say that every single week and he wouldn't be wrong.
Reasonable,
we spend 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, really Sunday. We start breaking down the guys that we like for the coming week. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, talk about all our favorite bets. And then Thursday comes along and it's like, oh, who do you have? Are your guys playing? It's like, if you're trying to be really sharp, the play might be to hold back a decent amount of the bankroll and just start on Thursday afternoon and go from there.
Yeah, especially in the context of a brand new course. Makes a ton of sense. And for the record, whether it's after 18 or 36, we're going to have you after 36 because we're going to be able to, on that Friday night show on the SportsLine YouTube channel, right after round 2 closes or soon after round 2 closes, we're going to set you up for the weekend. And we're going to talk about some live outrights that we might like. And honestly, this is a perfect time. This is a perfect week to really consider those, maybe more than other weeks because of all the things that Josh just set out. So definitely make sure you tune in Friday. We got the live show, of course, on Sunday as well. Thanks for joining us today. It's been a great show. Thank you, Josh, of course, for doing everything behind the scenes, but in front of the camera as well. Thank you, Jason Sobel. Thank you, everybody, for being in the chat, hitting the like button, and we'll see everybody on Friday. Let's have a good tournament next time on the Early Wedge.